good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Now we are entering into the lecture 14. The lecture 14 is entitled Concepts and Constructs. Especially in the research, we have to be clear of these kind of terminologies which would come in between our research. So, to begin with, a scientist or a social scientist operates at two levels. What are those levels? Number one, at the level where hypothesis is constructed, hypothesis is set up, that is the one level. Then the another, what is the another level? The another level is the level of data collection, processing, analyzing and testing of the hypothesis. These are the two levels of operations of a researcher. Setting up of the hypothesis, first level, and then the second level, collection of the data, processing of the data, analysis of the data and testing of the hypothesis to arrive at the conclusion. Formulation, generalization. In the context of clearing the views about concept and constructs, we are going to discuss some examples. Suppose a researcher makes a statement like disorganized families produce more crime, or poverty results in depression and frustration, or lack of social integration leads to suicide. Nature of domestic regime determines the foreign policy. Unemployment generates poverty. These statements which we discussed right now, these can be termed as hypothesis, consisting of concepts like disorganized families, crime, unemployment, etc. Further, depression, frustration, social integration, suicide are the concepts which are included in the above hypothesis. So, we find that the researcher at this level operates by using concepts and giving relational statements. The gathering or collection of the data for testing the hypothesis operates at different levels, At this stage, the researcher operates at the observation level. So, what is a concept? A concept is the word which is so defined that observations become possible. The, the concept which we are used here is well defined, is well known, and the observations that we are going to make for the study, the is possible. We have to collect the data, whether it is primary or secondary, and in primary also there are various scientific methods of collection of the data. We can do through any of these, but terminologies that we have used in the hypothesis, these are basically conceptual statements. These are basically conceptual things. These consist of ideas. A word is not a single word, it is an idea which consists of both a word and a definition. So, it is found that the concepts indicate possible or imagined properties of things, people, or events. Many times, these concepts are obvious, concrete, and tangible, but sometimes they are also not so obvious. For example, if we talk about how tall, pretty, fast, or fearless a person appears, so here we are assessing the person on abstract dimensions of length, beauty, speed, and courage. These are very obvious and very clear. But some images do not appear obvious to everyone, e.g., empathy, that is, understanding the other person by taking his or her point of view. In our example, the crime is defined as violation of the law. It is very clear to every person. People know it. This concept, what is crime, is very clear to every person. The instant understanding of the word crime. Disorganized families. What does it mean? It means the status or condition of a family which is characterized by disruption in various sets of relationships, say between father and mother, husband and wife, parents and children, daughters-in-law and parents-in-law, and all, whatever it may be. So, if we use this disorganized families terms, immediately it is very clear in our minds what we mean by it. Or if we use the term unemployment, what does it mean? It means lack of opportunity for job, for earning. There is no employment, or there is very high unemployment, or there is very low unemployment. All these are immediately clear to our minds. This concept is very clear in our minds. What do we mean by high unemployment? What do we mean by no unemployment? What do we mean by low unemployment? It is very clear in our minds. This concept of unemployment need not be explained, and we need not explain experts. We need not need it to be explained by experts or by any authority what unemployment means. Similarly, depression and frustration means hopelessness. One becomes hopeless, then he falls in depression, he falls in frustration. It is also, if somebody says that person X is suffering from depression, person X is suffering from frustration, immediately it comes to our mind, what is he facing? That is the concept. Similarly, the social integration. The social integration means the degree and depth of the association with the society. The as deep association with the society, as much social integration, and as weak the relationship with the society, as weak social integration. In the big cities, metropolitan cities, we find that social integration is low. Why? Because the relation between neighbors, relation between the society members are not very frequent. Meetings and interaction, they are not very frequent. They are all busy people. So there is very less degree of association, and so there is less degree of social integration. So if somebody, if the word social integration is utilized, then this word has a concept which is known by most of us. The concept regime means system of governance. This word regime carries a definition, carries it is a concept which, when we told to us, we immediately understand. Suicide is a word, but it is a concept also. It is a concept. Why? Because if we use the term suicide, immediately it denotes the unnatural and voluntary end of life. Murder is a word, but is a concept, which means that somebody has been killed criminally. Although this is a word, but it carries a definition, it carries a concept which is clear to all of us. Poverty we use frequently, poverty in our discussion, debates, and studies. So, what does poverty mean? Poverty is a word, but again it carries a definition, a concept that those people who lack the necessities of life, they are poor and they are facing the poverty. So, poverty, although it is a word, but simultaneously it is a phenomenon, it is a concept which immediately comes to our mind. If poverty is mentioned by any of us, all of us, we know what he means by poverty or she means by poverty. Similarly, there are other concepts. The concept of socialization means that the researcher should look for values, attitudes, skill, and roles which an individual has imbibed that shape into personality and result in his integration into society. So, if the word socialization is referred to, it is very clear in our mind. Similarly, the term social integration, this word or term refers to attachment of a person to the groups or to the society where he lives in. So, although it is a word, it carries a definition, it carries a concept, it is a concept which is very clear to us. So, the concept groups refer to a plurality of persons having direct or indirect communication, common goals, shared norms, and some degree of interdependence. We have now WhatsApp groups. Why are they formed? They are formed for ease of the communication, for giving the programs. These days, WhatsApp groups are formed for the students in the department so that any information which is urgent must be sent to them immediately, and that way they are attached. So, it is a group, WhatsApp group. So, if we tell anybody what's about WhatsApp group, it is very clear that there are persons in this who are related in some way, and for ease of the communication, for ease of the action, for ease of the of the job that they are doing, they will be utilizing this group. So, it is a concept which is very clear. So, therefore, the term concept is a word or set of words that express a general idea concerning the nature of a thing, phenomena, etc. So, concept is of course a word, but then it has a definition. It has an idea. It is an idea, and which is clear to all of us. So concepts are explained. Of course, some, all of them have definitions, all the concepts, like the concept of conflict. The definition of conflict might be interaction among individuals in which one individual seeks to prevent the other individual from realizing their goals. That is the concept of conflict. It is a word, it is a concept, it is an idea, it has a definition. So, it is recommended that the researcher should adopt an already existing and tested point of view of the world which he is using as a concept. The term trade, everybody knows what is trade. The term business, all we know what is business. So, there is an existing and tested point of view of the trade, of the business of export or of import, of crime, of punishment, of poverty, of the health services, whatever we use, of say of class, of regularity. These are words, but they are concepts which have an idea and which have a definition. Suppose one is studying on the need of services, health services in a village. So, the term health services has to be defined by the researcher. It could mean providing a medical staff, providing primary health center, providing more medical staff, providing more medicines, providing more medical equipment for performing surgeries, providing an ambulance, arranging home visits, etc. So, what we find here, that need of health services in a village, this concept is broad. It encompasses all the aspects of health services. So, it is better that while we do research, we define that exactly what do we mean by health services. Although it is a concept, it has an idea, it has a definition, but then if it carries so many provision of services, what kind of services is lacked? That has to be explained. In research, it is necessary that concepts are defined before undertaking the research, because many times these concepts vary. Although it is very clear that the what is meant by that word, that concept, but despite that, there are various, in some of the concepts, there are various changes with the change in conditions. We will discuss it with an example. So, take the example of say esteem. It is a concept, has a is an idea, has a definition. What does it mean? It means high opinion or great respect in evaluating a person's performance. That is meant by esteem. But then, what does high opinion mean? It means in the judgment of others, a person carries out his or her role very well and satisfactory, whatever the role may be. That is the definition. But then there are things which has to be explained. For example, a researcher has to study the esteem of three persons, A, B and C, from the different groups. The first person is an old person in the family. He has already retired. So in the case of the old person, the researcher may define esteem as high respect in terms of being consulted in decision making, being non-dependent for economic support, being loved by in-laws, daughter-in-law, for doing marketing purchases for the family, and also dropping the children to the van of the school and looking after the children in her absence. These are the various explanations of esteem of an old person who has already retired, may have the pension also. So the researcher may define the esteem of the old person in such a way. Then comes the second, the esteem of an assistant in his office. In case of this, the researcher may define esteem as arrival on time, departure on time, regular clearance of the files, acquainting the officer to the delicateness of the problem, and of course, when need arises, arriving on holidays also. These are the explanations of esteem of an assistant in the office. In the office, many of the researcher, it's upon the researcher, how does he define it? Then suppose the third, we take the example of third person, the esteem of a student in his college. The researcher may define the esteem of a student in the college as regularity in the class, his behavior, also esteem as good scores in the tests. It may also add that the student may be discussing his studies with or his problems with the teacher of the class. His behavior with his classmates, whether they are boys or girls. So these are the various explanations or definitions of the esteem of a student in his college, which a researcher may define. So, although esteem, by esteem, we knew what it is, a definition, it is a concept, but with the changing conditions, with the changing research conditions, the researcher has to define it properly. So, concepts are really very important for any theoretical framework for research. The role of concepts is to establish some kind of linkage with the social world. Concepts, this is why concepts are regarded as very important in the theoretical framework that sets a context for the research. So, I hope that what is the concept is now clear to us. It's, although it is a word, but it has an idea, it has a definition, and we immediately understand what this word connotes to. And accordingly, we have to collect the data. Now coming to the constructs. The constructs are not inherent in the nature itself. They are mental constructs. A construct is devised to aid in scientific analysis and generalization. These reflect a certain point of view and focus upon certain aspects of phenomena, for example, social change, social evolution, growth, social progress, modernization, and development. These are all mental constructs having different meanings. We can understand further the constructs through such example. We take the example of intelligence. Intelligence is a concept, no doubt. It has an idea, it has a definition. Immediately, we come to know about intelligence whenever we come to understand about intelligence whenever somebody refers to us. But then, intelligence quotient, that is IQ, is a scientific construct, is a construct, because this enables a behavioral scientist to measure the intelligence of a person given by the formula here. Less than 75 is considered feeble-minded, whereas a person with IQ over 130 is regarded as genius. So, the difference between intelligence and intelligence quotient explains very well the difference between construct and the concept. Intelligence is a concept, whereas intelligence quotient is a construct. Let us take the other examples. poverty and poverty line. Poverty is a construct, is a concept, whereas poverty line is a construct developed by to economists to measure the poverty. Similarly, trade and concentration of trade. Trade is a concept, whereas concentration of trade is a construct of the economist to study the geographical or commodity concentration of the trade. Similarly, export and export intensity. Export is a concept, whereas export intensity is a construct to study the some aspects of the export. Import and import intensity. It is import is a concept, whereas import intensity is a construct. Is a construct to measure some aspects of the import. Trade and balanced trade. Trade is a concept, whereas balanced trade is a construct to study important aspects of trade. We have social class, untouchability, popularity, etc., for which we have concepts and for which we have constructs. So, constructs are those, concepts are those which has an idea, which is an, although it is a word denoted by word, but it is an idea. It has a definition, whereas the constructs are not inherent in the nature, but they are mental constructs, and these are devised to aid in the scientific analysis and generalization. So, I am sure the difference between the concept and construct is clear in our minds, and I wish I have been able to make it clear. I have been able to clear the difference between concepts and the constructs. With this, we depart and we meet again in the next lecture. Thank you very much.